Welcome in to another late night edition of the Sunday Smash. It's Ira Schofel here with our guy Dominic Robinson, lead football analyst for Warchant.com. You guys know him, of course, from his days as an FSU football player, wide receiver, defensive back, baseball player. You didn't play basketball though, man. What happened? Why?
I did. A.D. McPherson had that basketball football thing locked down. He was football. He was Mr. Florida in football and basketball. I couldn't compete with that.
That's that's the real deal. He actually, and he, a few years ago, he was mentoring the kid Malachi Weidman, who is now at Jackson State. But also, I think he may have also done Mr. Football and Mr. Basketball. I think he followed in AD's footsteps there. But
special guys, man. I had it easy with football and baseball. I at least had a little break in between, man.
It's real fun.
Overlapping seasons is tough.
That's the thing, man. Like, we're not delaying the talking about Florida State Wake Forest, but
that is hello, football family. Is everybody doing okay? Everybody take a deep breath. We're okay. We are 4-1. We didn't lose to Middle Tennessee State at home.
Right. Could be worse.
We're good. Yeah, we lost to a very good ranked team. We're good. Everybody's good. Nobody needs to get fired. We don't need a new quarterback. We don't need a new anything. We're all we need. We're all we got. We're gonna be okay. Everybody relax.
Man, that it's funny how expectations change. If you told anybody a month ago or 6 weeks ago that they'd be 4-1, and their only loss would be to another top 25 team, I think most people would be like, all right. But then when you watch it happen, and like it's natural, they played so well against Louisville that, in coming back with a backup quarterback and all the injuries, and then a really complete performance against Boston College, and I got to go back in time and give more credit to that win because BC turns around and beats Louisville. I thought I was not that impressed with the BC win because I just felt like, man, BC looks like they're left for dead. And then they come back and turn around and get a win. So that I guess that's what it's just the expectations got so raised, and then they didn't play the way they had been playing. And that's one of the things I kind of wanted to talk to you about, D-Rob, since you played a lot of different sports at high levels. I just think sometimes as fans and media, we expect guys to play at the same level, perform the same way they performed last week, this week, even if the opponent changes or the circumstances change. And so I think that's why we sometimes get emotional because we've seen you do it before. Why are you not playing well today? I was kind of your thoughts on that game and kind of why Florida State may not have given maybe its best effort.
Yeah, I think, people need to understand that, like, that's what good teams force you to do. They force you out of the things that you want to do. They force you out of your technique. They force you out of the play calls maybe that you want to do, or maybe your philosophy. And other good teams respond with that by sticking to what they always do and doing and leaning into their fundamentals and their technique even better. But there's a reason why, and I said it 100 times on the watch along show. There's a reason why, and there's a process to get to that point. And we're not there yet, but it's okay to not be there because there's only one or two teams in the country that are consistently there. Like that just doesn't. That's not that's not a thing that just the average, slightly above average teams do on a consistent basis. And so, Wake Forest both is as a coaching staff, as a program, and the players that they have put you in a position that forces you out of your technique, out of your fundamentals, because of some of it is system wide, and then some of it is, like I said, 100 times on the show, that quarterback is a special quarterback, and he's going to make you do some things that are a little uncharacteristic of yourself. And that's what makes the people that don't get exposed in that moment, like that's why they go first round. That's why they play on Sundays, because they're able to rise above that. We don't have those guys yet. Like we just don't. And that's where we're getting to. That's where we hope to be, but we're not at that point right now.
in basketball, a guy like Trent Forrest, who played at Florida State,
Mm-hmm.
back
Yeah.
when, our mutual friend Adrian Crawford, back when Trent signed with Florida State, I remember
Mm-hmm.
asking him, like, why do you like Trent so much? And like, why do you like Trent as a recruit so much? And he said the players all love him because all he does is win. Like, no matter what team you put him on, his team is going to win. He's going to do all the little things to help his team win. He's going to make everybody else better. If you go
Yeah.
out and watch him play in an AU tournament, his team is always going to win. And to me, I think of a guy like Sam Hartman is kind of in that. And I'm not saying that they win 100% of the time, but it's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
there are some guys like that that impact everybody else, right?
Oh yeah, there's no question. And when I watch them play, again, the system lends itself, their system as a whole, their offensive system lends itself to to spreading the ball out, to getting the ball to multiple spots on the field, multiple players. It's not really like a superstar built offense. And I listened to Coach Clausen talk, do a clinic talk about that, and how their offense is essentially all weather. Their system, it's all weather. It doesn't matter. They don't need a superstar. And what happens is that you get one like a Sam Hartman, and now it makes that system look like it's unstoppable, because now you have an extraordinary talent in an extraordinary system that was built for no talent. It's the spread offense. When the spread offense got to college, it got there for the less talented teams, the Texas Techs of the world, who didn't have the players. Well, then all the good teams said, well, what if we use the good, this offense that creates advantages in and of itself? And then, and then teams were scoring, 60 points like it was nothing, 50, 60 points. So, yeah, Sam Hartman is that way. He's just going to keep you out of bad plays. There's not a bad play. There's not a bad play call. Man, we saw it. He did nothing. There was no one moment that just captured. He'll never have like the Heisman moment, for instance.
Right.
He's gonna take the completions that you give him. He's gonna consistently make accurate throws, move the ball down the field, and then the one time that you slip up, he's gonna make a throw that's gonna get a first down, on a 3rd and 9, and then before you know it, it's kind of death by paper cuts. Before you know it, you're like, dang, it's 31-21, and we had more offense than them. We had 7 yards per play. They had 4.8. I think we had 6.8. Technically, by any measure of offense, we played a better offensive game. But if you watch that game, you clearly saw one guy was completely in control and can get what he wanted when he wanted, and the other guy wasn't. And that's what that was kind of what the game came down to. Was Sam Hartman was going to make the plays when he needed, and he did it time and time again. I don't remember the 3rd down numbers, but at some point I believe they were 7 for 11. And if you'd have told me prior to the game that we would get them in as many 3rd and longs as we did, I would have said we won that game, because we got them in a bunch of 3rd and longs. But because I thought we had an advantage on the one-on-ones outside, because I thought these receivers were nothing like the LSU receivers, and we handled them one-on-one for 4 quarters. We never played zone coverage once, not one snap. This week, I thought these guys aren't as good as those guys, so we should be fine playing one-on-one. If we can get to 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, we can play one-on-one, and we won't win, and we'll win those battles. And we didn't win those battles, man. Jump ball, we got beat on a couple jump balls. We had a scramble that we got beat, and we had a pass interference. And all of those were 3rd down plays that you get it when you can get them in must pass, drop back pass situations. They hate it. Wake Forest does not like it. It's not what they do well. It's not what they want to call. And we got them in those situations, which is perfect. That's what you want as a coordinator. but then we didn't finish them off on those, and those hurt, man. Those were really really big downs. That might be the breakdown that I do this week. It might just be a third down, breakdown. I haven't decided yet, but those were really really big in the moment. I thought every time that they would convert those, I would thought, okay, this is a game that you lose if you don't win. If you get them to your advantageous situation and you don't win, then that's a game that you probably lose. Part of that too was pass rush, which is a whole nother conversation, that we didn't rush the passer the way we needed to.
Yeah, and I guess that goes to the topic of Adam Fuller. Well, first, real quick, Joel Davis had a contribution, and Joel Davis is always positive, and thanks for the donation. He says next year we'll have the roster depth to sustain the injuries. Yeah, man, I do think the injuries have stacked up now to a point where it's a challenge, man, especially against a good team. Like maybe you can withstand that against BC the week before, but now you're playing a better team, and it sounds kind of like loser talk a little bit. There's a lot of fans complaining about the officiating. The Wake never gets called for holding. It's questionable pass interference calls. And you talk about injuries. Everybody's got injuries, but the reality is, man, they've had 3 of their top 6 offensive linemen that started the year in preseason camp are out. 2 of them are out for the year. Robert Scott's been out for the last couple of weeks at left tackle. And then on the defensive line, your best defensive lineman, Fabian Lovett's been out. Jared Verse was limited, played 20-something snaps. Derek McClendon's been a little bit limited. I think Robert Cooper, all those guys are kind of playing banged up, which I guess comes with the position. But I do think the injuries are definitely a factor. And the longer you go in the program, you would think the depth the depth will improve.
Correct. And I brought that up prior. I brought that up, in the BC, during the BC game, that I thought that game was so important because that game wins you a game down the road, because you get some guys playing that haven't been, that aren't getting reps, and those guys need to get reps. So that when you do come up a situation like we had, where guys backup guys are playing, they're not backup guys. They're now starters because they've gotten starter reps. We're not there yet. And we just don't have the depth, and that's definitely going to start showing up here. We're at that point in the season now where you really start to see it. And it's a huge concern. We're just not at that point, in our, sort of in this rebuild, in this development process. We're not at the point now where you can lose your top pass rusher and be okay when you play a team like Wake Forest. Your opponent has a lot to do with that. And we're going to be, it's going to be tough sledding here to finish these things off because of the lack of depth. You're just not going to be healthy. It's not necessarily an excuse because everybody deals with it. It's the reality of playing college football, is you got to come into the season with more than just your starting 11.
Right.
And if you do, and that's all you got, then you're looking at a team that if they look like a 10-win team, it's probably an 8 or a 7-win team, because when you finish the season, it won't be the same guys if 11's all you got. So that's kind of where we're at. And we're not as thin as like just 11, but we don't go much deeper than probably 14 on either side, of guys that are legitimate ones, so yeah.
So, and then going back to Adam Fuller, which obviously, man, if the defense doesn't play great, everyone wants to fire the coordinator. I do think, to the point you were making, the way, the style they played defensively, it seemed like to me they weren't going to let Sam Hartman throw 6 touchdown passes like he did against Clemson. Yep. So what you're looking for in those situations, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but like your whole goal is to either wait for them to make a mistake, which they're probably not going to do because Wake Forest doesn't make mistakes, especially with that quarterback, or you get them in that 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 9, and now you got to make that one play. And so when you get them in, when you get them in those situations, as the coordinator, you feel like, okay, this is what we're here for. This is the moment we have to get off the field, and they just could never make that play. The corners and safeties just never made those plays. I'm curious, though, like, your thoughts on, and I know you're not at practice, but we are at practice. Last week, I thought if any group played really well on Tuesday and Wednesday of last week that we were out there, it was the DBs. They
Yeah,
broke up
yeah,
a ton. They broke up a ton of passes, and they made some really great effort plays where a receiver would catch the ball and they'd come out of nowhere and swat it out of their hands. I mean, it seemed like that was such a point of emphasis during the week because they knew how good Wake's receivers were and how good Sam
yeah.
Hartman is. But then you get in the game and they just couldn't make those plays. And the two plays that stand out to me are the touchdown. Well, there's a bunch of them, but a couple of them that stand out. The touchdown. Where Renardo Green's. I mean, he's right there, and like
Mm-hmm.
he just swats at the ball, but just misses it. The third, that last third and long on their long drive at the end, where Greedy Vance is in perfect position. You think he's going to, I mean, before the ball gets thrown, I'm thinking, okay, that's a pick. And he lets the guy make the catch over his head. Is it odd to you that there were that many opportunities and they hit such a low average when we've seen these
I
guys make plays before?
I'll tell you, I was shocked. That was the one thing I just said it earlier.
Yeah.
I didn't think we would get them in the situations that we got them in multiple times. So Wake, I can't wait to watch the video, but the all 22. But Wake called designed drop back passes more last night than any other night, than any other game this season. They're essentially calling about 5 a game, and I can already think of 5 off the top of my head that they call. They do not drop back and just pass the ball, and we got them in those situations multiple downs. The reason is they typically can run the ball for 3 yards on first and second down. So they're consistently in 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. I guess that was last night. They were in more 3rd and long, what we call 3rd and long, which for me that's 7 or more. They were in more 3rd and long than I would guess any other game this season. So again, that's your goal. Like if you're a defensive coordinator, that's what you want, because now it's a must-pass situation, and I got my best guys doing what they do. They know they're playing pass. They don't have to worry about RPO. They don't have to worry about fitting a run. And so my safeties are in coverage. My corners are in coverage. And like I said, I just thought they would make more plays than they made last night. I was really surprised. If you would have told me that the game was going to go that way, I would have said, that's a good game. And that was a good game plan. I can't say it enough, man. Like, again, I want to watch the film because I don't want to go too far. But as I was watching the game and as I've recalled it in my mind over the last 24 hours, I can't pinpoint a spot where Adam Fuller called a bad defense. I really don't. And that's hard. There's typically a play or two that you can pick and you go, man, that wasn't good. That wasn't it. That wasn't it. He pushed the right button multiple times last night and got them to situations that Wake Forest does not want to be in. They are not uncomfortable. They are not comfortable. You saw Coach Clausen at the end of that game. I mean, you could see he was exuberant because he knew they had escaped one where they took away my best player. We took Sam Hartman away for the most part. But when he needed to make a play, he made a play. And the wideouts. I gotta go, shout out the wideouts. They had to catch those balls, but those throws that he made on those downs, those were the star throws of the night. It's not typical of him because he typically has to make 35 completions for over 300 yards or whatever. It wasn't that type of night because of what Coach Fuller did to take away and force them to hand the ball off and force them to run. And man, I hate that. I hated that for the guys.
The one thing I want to like play devil's advocate, I guess. One other thing I was thinking about that with that though, because they didn't have the pass rush you'd like to have.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that
he
was a
and so
big part of it. There was
and
a
so
couple times where it wasn't necessarily the corners'
right,
fault or the secondary's fault. There was a couple times where it was like, that's too much time for an elite quarterback.
right.
He's
Yeah.
going to complete the pass, like that and especially because he's athletic too. That's what kills you, man. He's athletic, he's accurate, and he's smart as heck. He just doesn't make bad plays.
You know the worst thing about him, man, and it just dawned on me during the game, and I don't know if you could see it as well on TV, but you could see it when you're watching the game live. He's one of those, and I want to say the word I want to say, where he makes a play,
Yeah,
you make a play, and he compliments you. Like,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
like there's a couple times last night where like Jamie Robinson or other guys would make a play and kind of talk trash to him, and he would be like, "Great job," or like pat him on the head, and it's like, "No, dude, don't be nice. Like, be a jerk."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like it's more frustrating. That's how in control he is. That it
Mhm.
doesn't matter what you say, you're not gonna rattle him.
Yeah,
And
I get the feeling that he is unflappable.
right,
Just absolutely, there's nothing you can do. He is completely in control. And again, part of this lends back to his coaching and that system. And part of it lends to this. He's that type of player, he's that type of human. But when you watch him, you do get the feel that he is 100% in control on every single play. There's just no time where he's flustered. There's no time. Third
well,
and 12, down, up, like it just, send the blitz, don't send the blitz. He's he's very comfortable with everything he does.
so then like now let's talk about Jordan, where I think there's been times this season where we praise Jordan for being comfortable and knowing exactly where to go with the ball and reading the defense before the play and no matter how many blitzes you send at him, he's calm and handling it. But in a game like this, in the first half, he just never after the first drive, it just seemed like he got out of kilter a little bit and had a hard time regaining that. He did in the second half. I thought he looked good in the second half, and he finished the night with good numbers overall. But is that something that is he has more opportunities like that? You think he'll be able to calm himself down and get back in the moment, or is that something where and you either have it or you don't have it?
Yeah, I think this was a Jordan Norvell um, deal collectively more than it was a Jordan deal.
Yeah, I don't want to
And
put it on him. That's fair. Yeah, for sure.
what I mean by that is there are certain times, days and times where um, coach or play caller and quarterback just aren't quite clicking, and it's not really anyone's fault, but it's based on what the defense is doing, what the problems that they're presenting, what the quarterback is thinking that the answers to those problems are, and then what the coach is perceiving that the answer to those problems are. And for whatever reason on that day, sometimes they just don't click up. And I was seeing or feeling some of that, even not being there in
Right.
person. I was feeling like Norvell is feeling like the game or the calls need to go in this direction. Jordan was feeling like they need to go in another direction, and they just weren't comfortable with each other. And it just wasn't clicking. So that's
Mhm.
a thing that, man, sometimes that just happens. Part of that may be even the injury that Jordan has. We can't forget that
Right.
we thought that the guy was out for the season, 2 weeks ago. There's
Yeah.
something, there's something to be said for that. Like we need to be cognizant of the fact that it wasn't right. And so I said this during the broadcast as a coordinator, when that happens, so I call it spinning, like the quarterback's mind is spinning. And when you get a highly competitive guy like Jordan, what happens is it's almost like quicksand. The harder you try to go, the more you bury yourself. You get stuck, right? You really get stuck. And so you as a coordinator, you got to have certain calls that sort of get them out of that, get them unstuck. Like a couple completions, it might be a run, it might be a jet sweep or a fly. It may be a zone read where you tell him to pull it or to give it. You don't actually let him read it. You tell him, hey, you're pulling the ball here. We're going to try to get you on the edge. We're going to let you run. You pick up a first down for us. You start to get into a flow of the game. And I felt like the drive that finished the half where we got no points because we missed the field goal, that drive was really, really important because that showed me that Mike, Coach Norvell, was able to get Jordan back into that groove. I think he realized it. The problem with that, when that happens, is when you're playing a team like Wake Forest with their ball control offense, you only have so many possessions. Possessions are at a premium. Possessions are at a premium when you play a ball control offense. So you don't have time to work a guy back in and get a couple of and then not get points. You just don't have time to do it. And by the time Jordan got back into a groove, it's too late. And it's no fault of his or Mike Norvell's. It's just that's your opponent. And when you're playing that opponent, they're going to make sure that you don't have the ball. They're going to keep the guys that score the points on the sideline, and that's what they did. Their game plan. What I watched last night, it was exactly a Friday. Yeah, I guess last night was exactly what, and that's why Clausen was smiling, grinning ear to ear, because that was exactly what they want. That's the game they want to play. To a T. The only thing they don't want to do is they don't want to get in as many third and longs. So for us defensively, like I said, that was exactly the game we want to play. We just don't want to give up those third and 10s, third and 12s, third and 8s. We don't want to let them convert them, and they did.
Yeah, I think he was actually. They didn't convert all the third downs, but he was 7 of 7 on the times he threw the ball on third down. He was 7 of 7, so that's a pretty good clip for a quarterback.
Yeah, that's crazy good, man. Like you can't. I wouldn't expect the Alabama kid to do that. Like that's off the charts, man.
And that's how. And that speaks to
because
how well
those weren't third and 2s, third and 3s. Right. That's the thing that I'm saying. There were at least 4 of those were third and 8 or more. You're supposed to be less than 50% on third and 8 or more.
And that
even
is
the good quarterbacks.
And that's one thing I do want to point out. And we did not write this. Corey and I did not write this, and Austin, but I do think it's important to point out. Go watch Dave Clausen's press conference, and the point you're making about what he looked like after that game. If people will go watch his press conference, he could not have been more happy with the way they played. Like they played their A game. Florida State probably played like a B- game. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I think Mike Norvell's frustrated is like, man, you had an opportunity. If you played your A game, you might have beat that team at home, but you didn't, and they did. I did want to get to Z-Chan's question. Z-Chan, our guy Zach, came through with a contribution and a question I want to and while Ben brings it up, what he was asking was about the pass protection and why the pass protection broke down a lot. All right, so his question, Z-Chan's question, what's your take on the poor pass protection last night? Were they doing anything special that we weren't ready for? The one thing I noticed, D-Rob, and I want to get your take on it, I think they underestimated how quick that nose guard was. 0.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of times where, Florida State's pulling their guards and that joker is in the backfield before anything. And he's a grad transfer from Richmond. We've made a big deal about FSU's grad transfers. They went out and got a grad transfer at nose guard from Richmond. And that kid was, I thought, super quick and athletic, and he was very disruptive. When you get into a game where you've been watching somebody on film, but you've never played them before, and maybe they're quicker than you expect or stronger than you expect, like what can you do? Like, do you think they realized at some point, like we can't do what we normally do because that guy's a little bit better than we thought?
That's yeah. I was actually a part of one of those, and it was one of the craziest moments that I had at Florida State, and it was the quarterback from Iowa State. What was
Oh yeah,
his
yeah.
name?
What was his name?
Um,
2002.
yeah, Seneca
Seneca
Wallace.
Wallace. Yeah, he played in the league for a long time.
So
Yeah.
we go to, and so I was still on defense at the time,
Hey, was he inbounds or
and
not? Was he inbounds or not?
I
Or
thought he
the,
scored. I'm
you
pretty
sure he
sure he
scored?
scored. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he scored. Um, and I can remember multiple times in video, in film, we would watch a clip and he would literally run circles around, the Big 12
Right.
defenders. And we would skip them because we'd go, that's a Big 12 defender. He's not running like that around us like that. Like, this is Florida State. Like, we've got speed everywhere.
Right.
He's not running circles around us like that. We get a quarter and a half in, and Mickey is about to absolutely lose his crap because he did exactly what he did on film to us, and we were done. Like, we had no clue how to respond. I'd never seen our defensive staff. They always were so confident. They always had answers for everything. That was the first time that I looked at those guys and they were done. Their faces were just glazed over. They couldn't believe how fast he was.
Right.
And we did not have an answer for it. And it happened all night, and it happened on the final play of the game.
Yeah.
And technically probably won the game. And we got a favorable call, and we got out of there with the win. But I'll tell you, in terms of the protection issues, they did not do anything that we should not have us expected. They were incredibly vanilla. From what I saw, again, I haven't watched the film yet, but from watching the game live, I did not see that they did anything to confuse us. They did not change anything that they did. I did watch some of their game last week against Clemson. I didn't see them do anything different, change anything. They ran their base defense with their base guys, and their guys were just better than our guys. And we had some backups in there. We had some, we've got some issues up there up front, with injuries and guys playing different positions and things like that. And they exploited that, just plain and simple. They were a little bit better. And that was, that's something to keep our eyes on, going forward, is, again, the depth there. The guys that we had to have them because they were actual starters, ACC starters. I'm not sure we have 5 ACC starters starting on the offensive line right now, and that's so that's what you're gonna get when you face a slightly above average defense. I don't think Wake is anything special defensively. So yeah, that was a problem, and that's something to keep our eyes on going forward, because NC State will be tough up front, and Clemson will be the same.
That's what I think. That's what's got to be concerning. I think, and I've seen a couple of comments in chat, is, there were times last night where Wake rushed 3 and got pressure.
Yeah.
And so that, then you think about, what you're going to see from NC State and then Clemson. That is definitely concerning. I mean, Alex Atkins has got to figure some stuff out. A couple of the common questions in the chat. I saw a couple of people asking about the kicker situation. I do want to just kind of offer my thoughts on that. I didn't write about it. I did write about the situation with Fitzgerald a couple weeks ago, and basically just said, I think what Mike Norvell likes to do is, I think he likes to show kids loyalty if he believes that they can be good players, and if he believes somebody's the best player they've got or the best second team player they've got, I think he's going to do everything he can to give them every chance to become what they need to be, because that'll help the team. And I thought we saw that with Tate Rodemaker, where a lot of people were like, "Oh, Tate can't do it," when he came in against Duquesne, but Mike Norvell stuck with him, kept working with him, and then he comes in and shows what he can do against Louisville. So that was my equation with Ryan Fitzgerald. Is I think he's willing to deal with whatever Ryan's going through because he's their best kicker long term. They do have a walk on, but Ryan's their best kicker if he can figure this out. I do wonder now, though, man. You put him out there again in a situation where now he's getting booed by the home crowd. At what point do you think, as a coaching staff, you need to say, "Look, man, we need to give this guy some time," or so it's not fair to him at a certain point. I worry if that kid goes out there when they're playing Clemson in 2 weeks, what the crowd is going to do. That's a tough
Yeah,
situation, man.
yeah.
Kicking on the road is
I,
one thing, but man,
uh,
if they send him out there again, I mean, how are you supposed to kick when the whole crowd is groaning that you got sent into the game?
it's very tough. That kid's, you hope that the coaches take a smart approach, and a part of having a smart approach here is knowing the kid, like having a
Right,
relationship with the kid and knowing him well enough to know how do we motivate him, how do we handle that, how do we create the pressure situations in practice, so that when that does happen, when he does face Clemson here in 2 weeks at home, and those guys are moaning and groaning, um, that he can still get out there and do what he does. A big part of that is sort of the culture support system that you have amongst your team.
right,
That we don't lose a game because of one guy.
right,
Everybody has to do their part. Everybody has a role. If you've created that solid sort of foundation, that will lend itself to a kid bouncing back. And not that Missouri has this, but I don't know if you saw the Missouri kicker who missed a kick against somebody in the SEC last week, and then he just killed it this week.
really against
Almost
Georgia,
beat Georgia.
right?
Yeah, I want to say he had 4 or 5 kicks. I think he scored 15 points, and last week he missed a kick. To win the game. I think it might have even been in overtime. Oh, it was Auburn. So that's the thing is, do you have that type of environment where a guy can have
Feel
a rough day?
supported.
Yeah, same thing with Jordan. Same thing with
Yeah,
Jordan. He didn't play his best in the first half. I felt like Mike handled it really well with him. We actually saw that clip where he goes to talk to Jordan. He asked him a simple question: "What did you see?" Jordan, has a sort of spastic response. And he's like, "Calm down. I'm just trying to ask you, what did you see? Like, let's get this figured out together." You kind of have to have that same relationship with your kicker, where he feels safe that he can go out there and perform and not feel judgment from his team. Because when you have it internally from your guys, your family, that you will be affected by fans, booing and moaning and
right.
groaning when you're in.
The Ben, if you get a chance, Ben, there's a couple other comments that I missed where people made contributions. If you see those, all right. One of them is from JJ51 JC. Thank you, Warchant family. Great coverage. Is Benson in the doghouse? He's not getting carries. Go Noles. I don't think he's in the doghouse. I mean, I think that kid, they like him a lot. He didn't look great, I thought, when he did get some opportunities in that game. Fumbling the opening kickoff. Didn't look like himself. He did have one good kick return later. But, they also, I don't know what your thoughts are, D-Rob, but they didn't run the ball as well as I thought. Because, like, to the point you made earlier, where if your quarterback's not in a rhythm, your
Mm-hmm.
passing game's not in a
Yeah.
rhythm,
Right.
you
Yeah.
would think maybe you could lean on the running game a little bit, but then they couldn't. They weren't really having a whole lot of success. They had some spots where they had, but it wasn't consistently against a Wake team you thought they might be able to run better against. I would have thought.
Yeah, and I was a little bothered down in the red zone. There was a couple where I'm like, either he wasn't in or he wasn't getting the ball, and I just felt like, man, that guy, he's special in terms
Right.
of breaking tackles, and this is probably a good spot. But yeah, I don't know about it. I definitely don't think he's in the doghouse, and I definitely think they love him. I think part of the reason why you get away from the run game is you're down 21-7 going into half,
Right.
right? Is
Right.
that right? And you're
Right.
playing a team. And again, This is Wake Forest formula.
You
This
get
is why
you get
this is
you get
why they're
limited.
so
Yeah,
excited. You're limited possessions, you're limited time with the football, so you go away from really what you do well. Like that's what we do best. Is it? We've got a absolute problem back there with the three of them at running back, but you can't do what you want to do because you don't have time, to do it. And I thought actually they did a good job in terms of calling the runs that they did, because when we were down 21-7 to start that possession, he came out and went straight handoff, and we gassed him for a big one to get around the 50. And I think we had two big runs there. And I can't remember if it was Benson or Toafili. Trayshawn, yeah. I can't remember which back it was, but I thought that those were times where teams typically aren't going to run the ball at all. When you're down 2 scores going into half, 2-minute situation, you typically are going to get teams to spread it out and just chuck and duck there. And they didn't do that. And I thought that was an important message to send to your team, is that, hey, we are not far from out of this game, and we have plenty of game left to play. I think if you go chuck and duck there, even if you're successful, you get a team that panics. Like these are things that are important to think about, that I think people tend to forget, is like the psychology of play calling. Like what you call can be successful and still have a negative effect. Because if I all of a sudden call 8 straight pass plays, but I'm telling my team, hey, we got plenty of time, why are you calling 8 pass plays when our best players are runners?
Right.
Maybe we don't have that time. You're just saying that. Your words don't have the value or the weight that they need to have. So I thought that was really sending a good message to the team running the ball there, and you got yourself in a good position to score, and then you didn't capitalize on it. So
that was the one thing I would say. Like if I was playing devil's advocate about the defensive strategy, was the approach I think that they were taking made sense. Not giving up the deep ball and all that. But once you get behind a score, certainly when you get behind 2 scores, the pressing could get worse, because you're not going to get the ball. I always remember a game I covered in high schools in South Georgia. It was actually Charlie Ward's alma mater, Thomas County Central in Thomasville.
Okay.
They had won 3 straight state titles, and they ran the split back veer. And it was, it was just 3 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards, 65-yard touchdown. And it was just, and they were a machine with it. And they went and played a team in Columbus, Georgia that was not a good football team. It was like a 6-4 football team that just won a bad region and got into the playoffs. But they had huge 320-pound offensive linemen, and they ran the ball right at Central the entire game. And they literally kept the ball for more than a quarter at a time. Like they would just, and it was 3 yards, 3rd and 2, first down, third. I mean, it was just, and so Central, their players, they won 3 straight state titles, great culture, great program, completely freaked out. Like when they got the ball on offense, you could see them kind of losing their minds if they didn't score on the first play. And that's always something that stuck in me. So in a game like that, where I look at Florida State get behind and pressing, as a defensive coordinator, and maybe he did start kind of being a little bit more aggressive. They did play Jared Verse more. That might have been part of the mindset there, was, man, we have to force the issue. And then they blitz some, but I just think against that kind of offense, man, it just kills you. It kills your offense because you feel like you're behind the 8 ball.
And that's what I was going to say. I just wrote down. So Dave Clawson, he calls it the body blow theory. He looks at football as like boxing, and if he can get, he's okay with the 2-yard run. He's okay with the short pass. That he's okay if they go a whole game and never throw the ball down the field, because he's saying like these body blows are eventually going to affect somebody. And it's not even just physical effect. It's not even just a physical body blow. It's your offense is standing here watching, this quarterback surgically move the ball down the field first down, 3-yard pass, 3-yard screen, 4-yard run, 2-yard run, 4-yard, and your offensive coordinator and your offensive players are going, would you hurry up? Like, we got to get a stop. Can we get the ball back? Because we got to go score. We got to, and you become impatient.
Right.
And that's exactly what they want. That's exactly how they want to play. That's why I said their plan. And I'll tell you that the big moment, this was the killer. We're upset. We get the ball and we do exactly what they don't want us to do. 5-play drive. Mm-hmm. Just dominate that drive. It was unbelievable. I thought we were scoring 35 easy after that drive. They get the ball back. They always have positive first possessions. We get a stop.
Right.
You have to, when you're playing that type of offense, you have to possess the ball that next possession, and you have to score. But you don't even necessarily have to score. You just have to possess the ball.
Right.
And I think we went 3 and out.
Right.
And that may have been, I don't like to pinpoint like one thing that's the game, but that was the game.
Well, and
that
I think
possession, that was the game, because if we possess the ball there, it totally changes their offense. If we score there, it really changes their offense. Like I said, they don't want to call drop back passes because they don't want us pass rushing. They want you stopping the run. They want your pass rushers stopping the run. So if you're down 14-0 and we possess the ball for a good amount there, they are really, really in a bad way. And now they're completely out of their game plan. And that's what we could have done there. We could have taken them completely out of their game plan. We didn't do that. They were able to stick to their game plan on that next possession, run the ball, grind it out. I need to look back at the time of possession on that game plan or on that drive. But that was it. Like that was the game right there, man.
And it almost felt like
you get the ball back. You're not going to stop. First of all, you're not going to stop Sam Hartman multiple times and a half. It's just not going to happen. Like they score over 30. They average over 35 a game, right? So if you get a stop, that you just did something that you're not going to do consistently throughout a game. It's just not going to happen, and you got to score there.
And it seemed like to me what happened is when the offense didn't score there and Wake went right down and scored, and then I think Jordan it wasn't that series. I think it was the next one. Jordan fumbles.
The next series, yep.
But
the next series is a fumble. We go 3 and out fumble on consecutive possessions.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just felt like that's around the time where guys just kind of, you could just tell. I mean, they were just kind of starting to panic a little bit, which we hadn't seen. I wanted to touch on one more thing here real quick. So I want to give you credit because last week you and Aslan got in your debate during the watch along during the Boston College game about the impact of the Wake Forest Clemson game. And, Aslan, like a lot of us, thought Wake losing that close game might be, kind of a heartbreaker and maybe set them back and might affect them going into this week. You said you didn't think that would happen. And you, of course, were right. I mean, I listened to Dave Clawson talk after the game. He said he was a little bit concerned about it because he said they were gutted when they lost to Clemson the way they did in double overtime. But he said that their 5th and 6th year seniors just rallied everybody together, had great practices Tuesday and Wednesday. And he knew at that point, okay, we're ready to play this game. We'll be ready to play this game. The reason I want to compliment you on that, but then also looking forward to Florida State, how do you think Florida State can process? And I know you're not there, you're not in the locker room, but what's going to be the key for Florida State to get over this and get ready for an NC State team that's not great, but I think they're number 14 in the country, and they beat you in your own stadium last year.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it because they were just competing with a team that's going through exactly that just went through what they just went. It just had to happen to them. I'm really, really excited because I hope they can see, okay, they just lost to an opponent, in Wake Forest, just lost to a very good opponent. in a very tight game, in a game that they felt like they let get away, and they were able to go on the road, play us, and this was sort of the energy level that they played with in order to beat us. And so I'm hoping that they being the fact that they were so close to that situation,
Right.
they'll sort of reflect exactly what Wake Forest just did. They'll sort of see like, hey man, this is sort of the approach to doing that. I think this is a huge moment in Mike Norvell's tenure with this program, because these are the things that we have not done well in the past. We've had teams with this talent level in the past, in the
Yeah.
relatively near past, that were this talented, but their problem was the response to adversity. Things like this would happen. And even I saw it in that game. I saw a level of resilience that hadn't been around in our program recently.
Right.
When adversity hits, like I said, 21-7 and then a missed kick, and then the offense, and then the other team gets the ball back 28-7 on the
Right.
first possession. That game, in the past Florida State teams, that game was over.
You think it gets out of hand? Not only does it get out of hand, but you probably have guys fighting on the sideline. You probably have
100%. That game gets out of control, like in a lot of different ways. Like you said, coaches bickering with each other, coaches bickering with players, blah, blah, blah. I didn't see that. I didn't feel that. That team, tightened their britches and went to work. They grinded out that second half. So I really feel like they have an opportunity to do that same deal. And being so close to it, I think hopefully it'll have that sort of effect. I am concerned because going on the road after a tough loss is always really hard. And so that's why I did understand Aslan's point. But I just, again, having sort of a little bit of knowledge of Wake Forest and their coaching staff and kind of what they do, I just, and watching that game, I felt like that team was ready and felt like they could come to Tallahassee and get a win. I felt like they were confident to do that.
So
there was a good question up.
Okay.
I can't remember what it was.
I know. I think I don't know, Ben. I think Khalil might have had.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Khalil Young. Thanks, Khalil. Appreciate it, man. D-Rob.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think NC State's questionable OC play calling will make this game easier for our defense in some aspects. They play it to more of our strengths than what Wake Forest offense does. He's saying he doesn't believe NC State's play calling has been very good on offense. Have you watched that much? What do you think about them?
I know the quarterback. I actually spent some time with him this summer. He's a super talented guy. Really like him. But in terms of their offense, I don't know. Specifically what they do. It's not going to be as tough as preparing for Wake. Like that's going to be the toughest game to prepare for. Clemson won't be as hard. Clemson will have more talented players than Wake, but they won't have a system that is as difficult to prepare for. And then Florida system later down the road will be akin to preparing for this or the Wake Forest system. So yeah, this is the game that they just played, and this is, again, I can't tell you how well this defense played, and even with these huge mistakes, even with the corners getting exposed, they hold them under their average. They get them into these third and longs, and they have a chance to win the game. They give, if the offense plays a little bit better, we missed a couple kicks. I mean, we're talking about a 2-3 point game against a very talented quarterback. I just the challenge that Wake Forest presents is unique to this season. There won't be one like it, or even I guess Florida, I think, will be similar to it, potentially down the road. But yeah, at this point, man, I don't see anything being more challenging than what Wake Forest does.
And I know, so NC State, their game against Clemson yesterday, they apparently their offensive line just got dominated, but it's hard to take too much away from that because Clemson's defensive line is probably the most
Mm-hmm.
talented in the country, and
Yep.
Florida State's defensive line is banged up. So you don't know if you'll have the ability to capitalize on their weakness, which seems to be. I mean, the quarterback's a great quarterback. There's no his numbers last year are insane, and his numbers this year aren't quite to that level, but they're still really, really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but where they have struggled, I think, is on the offensive line. But I don't know that Florida State can take advantage of that. And then the other side of it is, from a schematic standpoint, what do you've watched a lot of Mike Norvell's offenses?
Yeah. Yeah.
If the offensive line doesn't, Robert Scott, if he doesn't come back this week, if those are the guys you're rolling with again, what do you think? What are some things you'd like to see them do offensively to kind of help out that offensive line against a pretty stout defensive line from NC State?
Here's the thing: is like he wants to run the ball and he wants to run a counter. You got to have some guys to do that. I think what you do to help them is, we saw that there you can run, an RPO off of your counter, off of your favorite run, and we saw it. We actually saw it second play of the game. They hit Johnny on it, and then we saw it again later to 11. And I think those were the only two times that we saw that particular look, which is essentially his best run paired with a pass option, or his favorite run. That helps the blocking up front. It helps the guys when the defensive line is rushing to block to stop a run, and that's not a run. And if you do that off, enough, they get tired of, dang, I didn't get a tackle, or the ball going over their head. They get tired of that. I think we could be a little bit more aggressive with that, and honestly, just the quick passing game in general. I just didn't see a lot of it, and part of it may have been Jordan spinning. But like for me personally, as a passing game coordinator, I love in those positions when my guy's spinning to just throw now screens to my wideouts where we don't even have to block. Your front five guys don't have to block on wide receiver screens. We don't need you. You just stay out of the way. We're going to catch the ball and we're going to get it out there, and we're going to and we've seen this wideout crew, they'll block you. These guys, they will block you. They are not out there trying to be pretty and just catch balls and do celebrations and dance. Those guys are gritty out there. Micah Pittman and all those guys. So
you played with a pretty good blocker. I remember when just to interrupt you, but I remember talking to Quan one day, and I said, because I would watch it during games, you would see DBs kind of running away from him on running plays. Like he just would. I mean, now they don't know if they have anybody physically like him, but that is a big deal, man. The way they block on the perimeter is a big deal.
It is. It's a huge deal, and you would be surprised at how much it helps you in the passing game. I actually did when I did the breakdown on Johnny. That was one of the things that I was pointing out was, if you look at the fade that he ran to win the game, he releases and shows like he's gonna block. Well, that's going to make a DB pee down his leg because he just dumped him. Just like 3 plays earlier, Johnny picked him up and dumped him on his back. So now I don't know if it's run or pass. And I do have an Anquan story. When I was a freshman.
So you're on defense?
I was on defense. Yeah. This was it's probably my second practice with Florida State. But now, mind you, back then we had freshman camp. So we already had freshman camp. I'm done. I'm dead. Like freshman camp was the worst thing, is the hardest thing that anyone's ever done. You're practicing with like 1/4 of a football team because it's just the freshmen. But we're practicing as if it's a normal practice. And Mickey Andrews is my coach. So he's literally trying to kill us. So anyways, now all these guys show up and they're NFL guys. It's Anquan Bolden and Javon Walker and Atruz Bell. These guys show up, they're fresh. We've been practicing for 3 days with no help, no backups, and here they go. We're in our first team session, and they're calling the play in the huddle. And I see Anquan look out and see, here's this superstar,
Right.
all world, recruit that just showed up. Well, I'm gonna, and I see him telling these guys, like, I see him telling the other wideouts, hey, watch this. So I'm thinking he's about to come out and give me, Anquan's
Right.
very quick, he's shifty, he's about to try to turn me around and spin me or whatever. So he releases off the line. I start to mirror him, thinking, okay, he's going deep. He's got to run a deep route. He gives me a move, and then he takes his forehead and sticks it right up under my chin. He proceeds to drive me about 17 yards up on the hill. So we're on the bottom practice field.
Right.
He drives me up on the hill onto the practice field number 2. Is that level now, or is it still?
It's all level now.
It's all level. Okay, yeah. So you guys, that been to the practice field, the new practice field, you don't know, but it used to be levels. He drives me onto the second level and dumps me there, and just gets up and jogs back to the huddle. It was a great and horrible introduction to ACC real big time football. And I tell my guys, wideouts that I work with now and DBs that I work with now, I tell that story all the time, because it showed me a lot about sort of a mentality that, like, I can contribute to a team more than just running routes. Like, he was the best route runner that we had by a mile. And his thing wasn't to show me that he could route me. It was sort of to prove he was the alpha by, spinning me around and then dumping me up onto the second field. And it was such a great lesson. Like, it's a great life lesson too. Like, everything you do doesn't need to be a touchdown down the field. Like, sometimes the dirty work is just as important. So
that's awesome.
But yeah, I love those guys. What they do, Micah and Johnny are both playing really hard. Do span. They're getting after it in the blocking game, and you can see they take pride in it. So again, the point that I was trying to make is, if your guy's spinning, it's a good time to. Right. I would like to see this week, if you can't block up front, let's throw some screens. Let's get it out. Let's throw some quick game, and then let's show our run, so that we can get that run later when we need it, because that's what he wants to do. Mike wants to run counter, which is great. So let's show it and throw RPO behind it, force them to take the pass part away, and then let's work the run game. And maybe that'll help our guys up front, who aren't maybe the most talented. They aren't the best guys.
Awesome. All right, we're going to wrap up. I just did want to touch on one last two quick little things. One is, I think Johnny got like 8 targets in that game. He caught 5, I think, for 85. The fan base right now wants Johnny Wilson to get, 35, 40 targets a game. What is the challenge there? What's realistic? And then the last thing is, a lot of complaints about the officiating. As a player and a coach, like, do you guys, like, how hard do you have to fight to not worry about the holds that aren't called against Wake Forest, or the pass interferences that are called, and like, what, how do players and coaches look at that? Because I know for fans and sometimes media, you can kind of hyper fixate on that stuff. If you could
me, because of the school that I came from, the Mickey Andrews school, that's a non-factor.
He used to say holding's a personal problem.
That's exactly. I said it during the broadcast. He would always tell us, if he only holds you if you let him. Holding is a fight thing. We never talked about referees like that. To me, it's a non-factor. The referee thing is not a coaching thing. I've got to coach you better, to coach to execute your technique better. If the officiating was bad, then it was bad. I always come into it again, trying to go into my baseball mindset, is you show up expecting it to be bad. Then when it's okay, you're pleasantly surprised. Right. I tell my baseball guys all the time, these guys are horrible. They're gonna be horrible. So you show up expecting it, and then you won't be disappointed when they are bad because you're expecting them to be bad. I've always coached that way. I've always believed that you can't control that. There's nothing you can do. You just got to play. You got to play the game, and you have to adjust to how they're calling it. I said this during the watch along. If it's not holding if they don't call holding. So if they're getting away with something, then why aren't you getting away with the same thing? If it's I don't know that Wake Forest teaches them to hold or to block that way, but if they're teaching it that way and it's allowing them to be successful and they're not getting those calls, then kudos to them. That's good coaching to me. It's not holding. If the flag doesn't get thrown, it's not holding. Now they have to be able to adjust to the game also. Then the story that I told her, sort of the explanation that I put behind it is if an umpire is calling the ball on the outside part of the plate, then the ump for that day or the plate for that day is 19 inches. It's not 18. So you've got to adjust to that. And if you can, you will succeed. You'll be successful. If you can't, then you won't because you're not using the advantage that you have. So if Wake Forest had an advantage on that day because they weren't calling the holding, then we need to also be able to take advantage of that advantage that the umpires or the referees are giving us.
Perfect examples back in the day when Kelvin Benjamin, who we've talked about a lot in the last few weeks with Johnny Wilson, that game at Florida where Florida's DBs were being very physical with him and they just weren't going to call it. It was SEC refs and they just weren't going to call it. And then he just started grabbing dudes and throwing them out of the way because all right, if that's, to your point, okay, if they're not going to call that, I have to address it. And so that's what you want to see from Florida State's defensive ends is if you're getting held, that's a you problem. You got to figure it out. You can't just look to the referees.
You can't. No, you got to play. You got to play that game. And again, like Mickey used to say, that's once that happens, that becomes a fight. Like it's a fight, and if you fight enough, they'll call it. You'll see the separation. You'll see the jersey tug. When you watch holds that aren't called, a lot of times you'll see the defensive player realizes he's being held, and then he sort of concedes. It's just like, okay, I'm being held. I'm sure you're going to protect me here. You're going to throw this call. And they sort of, I don't want to say give up, you know what I mean? But there's a certain posture that a guy takes. And when you see a Mickey Andrews defensive player play, you can tell when he's held because he's fighting like hell and the jersey's being tugged. There's, you can see the separation or the attempt for separation. And then it's egregious. And then, you know what I mean? Eventually those get called. So you can't play this game. And to me, it's a bad way to even watch a game if you're watching the refs. Like you gotta enjoy your team, enjoy your players, the things that they're doing. They miss calls all the time. Coaches, just as many holding calls were missed, coaches called bad plays. Players did wrong techniques. There's a bunch of mistakes that are made. They're human beings that are going to make mistakes, and we don't fire, the guy because he made a bad play call, or we shouldn't at least. And or a guy calls a bad defense, and we don't, so you don't complain about, a couple missed calls. Missed calls happen all the time. There were missed pass interference. And things like that. That's just a part of the natural flow of the game. To me, you just don't get in a situation where that kills you. Don't go down 28-7 where you need a pass interference call later.
Right.
And that was the whole Mickey sort of point of view was like, don't get in that position where you need that call so badly that now you're mad when you don't get it. If we're up 28-7 and we miss a pass interference call, we would just go, oh man, that sucked. That was he missed a call, and we move on from it, So
last thing, and then we're going to go. I'm going to let you go. Johnny Wilson, is he getting enough targets? Is there ever enough targets?
There's never
enough
enough.
targets in the world for Johnny Wilson.
Listen, I'm a wideout. We never get enough targets. We can always get more targets. I don't really necessarily have an issue. There was a concerted effort to get him the ball Friday night or Saturday night. There's no question about it. They went to him play one. They went back to him play two. They wanted to feed him. They lost sight of that because I think the quarterback spinning and I think some pressure that they didn't think they were going to have. Right. So I would like him to sort of keep that going. In terms of like continuing that throughout the course of a game, but he's definitely getting enough. I also would say they went to the fade and you saw how easy it was. It wasn't even a good throw and he caught it right here. He's 6'7". You should never catch a ball right here when you're 6'7". But that's how much of an advantage you have on that play. So you got to do that more. You just,
Did you see the look? I didn't see it until I watched the replay today. The DB's face, and when he turns around, it's just like, give me a break, man. Like, what?
Yeah, it's like, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Yeah, I agree. You got to do it once, especially again going back to if your guys up front aren't just mauling them. And, if you're not getting the blocking that you need, you don't need the block on a fade. You don't need anything. And when you have Johnny or a guy like him, you don't even necessarily need a great throw. That was not a good throw. That was not a good ball. He didn't run a particularly good route. That's the thing. That's what you love about a fade is like when it's not perfect, you still can win if your guy is extraordinary in some way, shape, or form, whether that's quickness or size. And Johnny is that, obviously. So,
all right, man. Well, I enjoyed it. Hope people did as well. And thanks for spending time with us. I want to thank ABC Fine Wine and Spirits. Should have done that a few more times earlier. We appreciate their support in sponsoring the show. And we appreciate everybody here watching it and everybody that watches on the replay. D-Rob, it's always a pleasure, man. You give us so much knowledge. I enjoy our talks probably more than the audience does. So I appreciate it, man. And look forward to seeing what you come up with this week. I think you're going to do some content this week. And then also, although you're not going to be doing the game next week, right? I think you're out. Are you out this week? Or are you doing the game, the NC State game? Or is it to be determined?
I am going. So what time is the game?
8:00 on Saturday.
I think it depends on the game. I'm going to Alabama, so it depends when Alabama Texas A&M plays. Well, hopefully, I'm doing it though, man. I really want to do the game. So.
Yeah, hopefully you are. And either way, we will still have a watch along. Jeff and Tom and Aslan and the crew will be doing it. Corey and I will be up in Raleigh, and also we have coverage coming at warchant.com all day tomorrow. Wake Up Warchant's coming in the morning. My voice isn't cracking this week because I didn't drink any tequila, D-Rob. I'm golden here.
no shake voice.
no
shake voice this week. Yeah, we'll bring it back next week, hopefully.
Yeah, wake up Warchant in the morning. Then the press conferences, Mike Norvell and the coordinators will talk tomorrow at 11:30. Stay tuned to warchant.com and Warchant TV for complete coverage. We appreciate it. And we'll see if the Noles get back on the right track this week. Talk to you guys next time.
Thank you. Love you guys. Love you, football family. We're good. We'll be all right.
Don't need to fire anybody.
Everybody's good. Everybody keep their job.